When buying something new, it can be tempting to choose the cheapest option. But as we all know, a low price often means poor quality. When you consider the whole life cycle cost of a product, buying things that simply don't break will be the best option, both financially and environmentally. That's why Vestra's goal is to produce furniture that lasts forever. When our designers approach a new design, sustainability is a key factor. Therefore, we use short haul materials of the best quality. Slow growing in its cold Nordic environment, Scandinavian pine gets extra hard. This makes it exceptionally durable and well-suited for outdoor use. Nordic Steel is hot-dip galvanized and powder-coated to meet Norwegian offshore standards. The steel production generates 30% lower greenhouse gas emissions than the world average. Having taken such measures to select the best materials, we do not hesitate to offer a lifetime guarantee against rust and a 15-year guarantee on wood and paint. Vestra offers spare parts for all the furniture we've ever made. After many years of use, worn-out furniture can be returned to our factory for restoration and reuse. So that's how our products last forever and ever and ever. This aids Vestra on our way to becoming the most sustainable furniture company in the world. Our products may cost a little bit more, but in the end, if you consider the whole life cycle cost, we believe no one can beat us.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this month's Fika with Friends. This is the penultimate one for this year and a really exciting one. So I'm really glad you've been able to join us. We're very much looking forward to hosting this today with you. And we're going to be discussing SDG 11. It's one of our most common SDGs to talk about, I think, sustainable cities and communities. And in particular, target 11.4, which is to strengthen the efforts to protect and safeguard the world's cultural and natural heritage. And we're being joined by Mary today, Mary Bowman, for a conversation about Gustafson Porter and Bowman's incredible competition-winning project that will completely reimagine the area around the Eiffel Tower in Paris. And this hugely complex project involves a complete transformation of the site around a central green axis. I'm sure you'll have seen images. If you've Googled Eiffel Tower recently, you'll definitely have seen images. And this is going to entail a series of contrasting landscapes spanning 54 hectares. And phase one will be delivered just prior to the 2024 Olympic Games in Paris. So they're on a deadline. And Mary is going to detail the proposals that will make up this, that will make this iconic city considerably more sustainable through greening and other measures, and also respecting the extensive history and culture of this iconic site, which, as I mentioned before, is really very much in line with SDG 11.4. So a hugely warm welcome to Mary. She'll be joining us in a second. And I'm Romy, for those of you who don't know me. I'm the commercial director here at Vestra in the UK. I should just mention we're recording this webinar for catch-up purposes. I'm sure you'll hopefully be okay with that. And I'm also sure you'll have lots of questions. So please do put those in the Q&A tab. And when Mary's finished her presentation, we'll have lots of opportunity to discuss those. So hi, Mary, I'm going to stop sharing now and allow you access.
Okay. Can you see and hear me?
I can hear you and see you.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah. It's a good start.
That's good. Okay, I'm now sharing my screen. Is that good?
Yes, that's perfect. We've got that. Thank you.
Okay, so good morning, everybody. I'm very pleased to be able to present this project, which we've been working on now for the last at least 3 years. When we first started working on the project, we were invited by the City of Paris in a competitive dialogue. And we, along with 3 other teams, which included Amanda Levitt, the British architect, and 2 French teams. We worked with the City of Paris for a year, and then they selected one team, which was ourselves, to move forward with the project. So as you know, the Eiffel Tower site sort of spans both sides of the Seine River, and it's you know, the whole of the Seine is a listed landscape, and working within the site, we're also working within a listed context. And you probably already know that the Eiffel Tower was built for the Universal Exhibition in 1889. And at that time, you can see that the site did span both sides of the river, from the Champ de Mars all the way up to the Palais de Chaillot. And the exhibitions used to use both sides of the river. And our concept for the project was really to reunite these two sides and to create one single large park that would be identified as a single entity. And so that one became the name of our project. And it also expressed a kind of desire to unify the site in not only spanning in design across the river, but also in terms of materiality, the way it would be run, in our working with our team and client team as one team. And so it was really a kind of a unification of this that ideal and the ideas. These are some of the concept diagrams that were put together at the competition stage. And in our analysis of the site, obviously the Eiffel Tower is the thing that draws everybody to that center point. And over the years, it has become extremely, the soil around has become extremely compacted. It hasn't been very well looked after. A lot of the surfaces have been trampled. The grass is not growing. The plants are not in great health. A lot of traffic issues and so on. So the aim of the project really was to try and create many more opportunities and points of interest along the whole of the site, so that people would come, not only tourists to see the tower, but residents and people who are just visiting the site will find other activities to do, pulling some of that singular attraction away from the tower. And then we wanted to reinforce this the sense of monumentality, which is sort of very specific to the site as one identity, this green line that goes from the north in Trocadero to the south in the military school. And then to overlay on top of that a kind of urban archaeology by increasing the density of planting, the biodiversity, looking at introducing more native species. And overlaid on top of that then was this experiential sort of parcours, a route that goes through that explains the sort of history and culture of the site. In these diagrams, you can see the one on the left talks about the historic monuments, the listed monuments. So we have the Palais Chaillot to the north, the Pont d'Iéna bridge that spans the river, the Eiffel Tower, and the military school. And they're all aligned along that very straight central axis. There's also a strong presence of water on the site. And we also wanted to create a number of new event spaces so that we could begin to take the pressure off of the grass and the planting, the landscape. So create specific hard plazas where events could take place. In our analysis of the existing landscape, there are two very different sort of typologies. One is the what Catherine always calls the landscape of power, that big, long, 2 kilometer long axis from the north to the south, which you see in French landscapes such as at Versailles, very strong, powerful, formal axis. But then around that, you have this picturesque landscape, which was really just being developed at the end of the 19th century, around the time that the Eiffel Tower was being built. And the picturesque landscapes, or the English landscapes, were some of the first public landscapes in France, because previous to that, obviously, Versailles and other places were privately owned by the ruling class. So this is our vision for 2030. Which includes the whole of the site. If I start from the top, there's the Place de Trocadero, which we're redoing. It's currently a roundabout. and reinforcing the access through to the fountain of Varsovie, where we're looking at the area around the fountain, the Pont d'Iéna bridge, the creation of these two plazas at either side of the bridge. Then we're greening the whole of the Quai Branly from the Birakem metro station all the way to the Eiffel Tower, redesigning the area underneath the Eiffel Tower and the lateral gardens either side. The landscape architects Vogt have recently redone the gardens around the lake, and those we aren't redoing. They've just been done, but we're looking at tying a new landscape in for the two sides into that existing one, and then the bottom half of the Champ de Mars. And all of this area, or the majority of that area, will be complete after the Olympics, and it will be a part of a separate commission. So today we're just going through the public consultation planning process, and at the same time we're developing up the tender documentation for these areas of the site. So the main areas along that central axis. And this is what we're hoping to complete before the Olympics. And then after the Olympics, there'll be the project for the rest of the site. So the works that we're doing now are around the Place de Trocadero, the Fountain of Varsovie, the planting of the bridge, the Quai Branly promenade. There's also a building here, which is a youth center, sports area. And we're also building a new building for the Parks and Gardens, people who look after the Champ de Mars and the gardens, and then a small area of the Champ de Mars. The Olympics are going to occupy all of this area, so we are not able to look at that at the moment. But I think it's obviously a hugely complex project, and one of the main drivers really was trying to pedestrianize the site and improve the pedestrian experience. And in order for us to pedestrianize the bridge and allow people to be able to move from the north to the south in a relatively car-free environment, meant having to reorganize the transport. So we're allowing buses and obviously service vehicles, ambulances, police, that kind of thing, to use the bridge, but no private cars will be allowed to cross over the bridge. And in doing that, we obviously had to send the traffic to the two bridges either side of Birakem and the Pont d'Alma, and that involved doing traffic studies with the city to see what the impact on the overall traffic flow would be. And in terms of the buses, in order to liberate this whole axis from having cars passing through all the time, which is the case at the moment, we cut off the buses at either end here, and then rerouted where the buses used to come through. We routed them either to the south or to the north. So that was really one of the main ambitions, and it's obviously highly controversial. There are a lot of people that, as we're going through the planning process, are not happy about adding 3 or 4 extra minutes to their travel time. The cyclists obviously have their demands, the taxis have their demands, the buses have their demands. So it's really working through with all the various services within the city of Paris to try and get the optimum solution. So in at the north, we have the Place de Trocadero. Today it's a roundabout, and we're creating a grass lawn terraces which step down from a high point. We're up on the Colline de Chaillot, which is quite elevated from the gardens below. And so we're using that sort of natural topography to create these step terraces. And it means that where there was a road here, people can come out of the metros either side in a completely car-free environment. And we also improve the pedestrian connections across from the other metro stations on the other side. So people will then move through between the two wings of the Palais de Chaillot and down to the lower level. In this image, you can see a before and after. So today, the roundabout in the middle of it has just been left as sort of meadow, and you can see the cars passing through in front. There are also a lot of tourist buses that block this fabulous view of the tower. And so what we've planned are these lawn terraces. You can see there's a few steps up. There's also a ramp around the side for disabled access. And then the terraces that set down with this fabulous view of the tower beyond. And that's a sort of aerial view looking down. And you can see that very strong 2-kilometer long access from this point that's marked by the Admiral Foch statue all the way down to the military school. And then the 2 wings of the Palais de Chaillot, which were built for the 1937 exhibition, which was the last one that was held. Then we have the area around the fountains of Varsovie. We're not touching the fountain. The fountain has these huge jets that it's quite a spectacle, and people sit on either side of the lawn and watch that spectacle. It's also used for fashion shows. Yves Saint Laurent just had his fashion show, and they put the runway over the top of the fountain and then mount the kind of stands to either side of it and have the big, so the models walk down right on axis with the Eiffel Tower. And then we're greening a lot of these edges, more planting, adding in lines of flowering cherry trees, all to reinforce that very strong perspective back to the tower and along the axis. So this is the plan of the fountain, and you can see here we've added in front of those historic walls additional planting, additional row of trees. And then at the southern end here, this whole area was really vehicular kind of crossover, and very hard for pedestrians to cross that road. They sort of have to come way over to the edge and come here and cross over to get onto the pavement of the bridge. So these spaces will be completely pedestrianized in this area to either side of the green square. And then we'll allow buses to come through, to turn onto the bridge, or to go straight ahead. And it's actually a shared surface. The buses will need to slow down to 4 kilometers per hour, and people will be able to cross across that big plaza. Here you can see a before and after image of the fountain of Varsovie. It's we're narrowing some of the paths, putting in more sort of clipped hedges and benches, and the line of cherry trees that we're adding to reinforce that axis. Also adding in additional lawn and creating these step terraces as you move down. And then an image of the Place de Varsovie. You can see here on the left-hand side how it's really just a vehicular area, a lot of traffic going through. When we get rid of the cars tomorrow, then we can completely pedestrianize that zone, which is framed in by planting. And there are kiosks either side for souvenirs and drinks and that kind of thing. And there's an existing carousel on the site, which will obviously stay. Then the bridge has been obviously quite a contentious proposal, and we're going through various studies now about how to plant the trees on the bridge. Because it's a historic bridge, there's not a lot of information about it. There are very few calculations that they can find in the city archives about how much weight the bridge can support and that kind of thing. So we're in the middle of doing a sort of detailed study for how to achieve the planted bridge. And then here you can see on the southern side the Place Broglie, again with a green square in the middle that marks that axis, and then hard paved pedestrianized areas to either side. So at the moment it's a 6-lane road that crosses over on the Pont d'Iéna. The Olympic Committee is going to use the bridge for the arrival point for some of the marathons and other races, and you can see they'll mount gradins, stands on the bridge, And then after the Olympics, we'll come in and put the central lawn in and plant the trees, which has obviously been quite contentious with the historic monument people, are quite resistant to changing the stone character of the bridge, the historic character of the bridge. But the mayor, Anne Hidalgo, is very much for having the first planted bridge in Paris. And so before the Olympics, there's a proposal to just have temporary planters with sort of low-level planting, so that we can prefigure the bus route coming through and the sort of the idea of planting the bridge. And then after the Olympics, we will be able to realize the full vision. Then moving further south, once we've crossed the bridge, we come onto the Quai Branly, which links to the only metro station, the RER station, that has disabled access. So for the Olympics, that's going to be an important entry point. And the idea was that once you come out of the metro and cross onto Quai Branly, you feel immediately like you're in a garden environment. It's very planted, and that leads you along to the entry point for the gardens and for the Eiffel Tower. We've taken out one lane of traffic and expanded the pavements to be able to achieve this. Again, changing the traffic pattern so that we just have one lane of private vehicular traffic coming in and a dedicated bus lane, and then 2 lanes of private cars going underneath this bridge. There's a tunnel here, you go down, pass underneath this plaza, and then come back up again, so that we can try and liberate this plaza as much as possible in front of the tower. So here you can see an image again, before and after image. There are a lot of different kiosk types around all around the site, really. And we've proposed, working together with the French architect Satie, who have designed a family of kiosks that will sell food and drink and then souvenirs. And one of them is an orientation sort of information point, and others are toilets. But a kind of a unified family of furniture across the site. This is a view of the Quai Branly. As you can see, it's very richly planted, and we have a 5-meter wide pavement here with planting on both sides, additional trees all along the roadway, so that forms a kind of screen to the vehicular traffic, and you feel much more like you've entered into this garden environment as you're on the approach. We've also been working on this little building here, which is the Sport and Youth Center, and that will be basically stripped out and cleaned, and will be then the city of Paris intends to have some kind of concessionaire in there, either restaurants or some public-facing concession that will be open to the public. And we've here you can see we've redone the little plaza, planted more trees, and framed in the trees with planting to frame in that plaza. And then there are a series of kiosks all along the Quai Branly as you walk down. And this is a little building that was designed by the architects on our team, Chartier-Cobasson. This on the left-hand side is the existing building. And originally we were just going to add another floor onto this building and reclad it. But when we actually got into the detail, it was more economical and more sustainable to actually completely redo the building. So they've designed a timber building, which is a lot more, sustainable. We can have adequate insulation, and it didn't involve the sort of complex micropiling that we would have needed to actually add another story onto the existing, not very well built building. And this is the area just underneath the Eiffel Tower. You can see the 4 feet here, and one of the ambitions has been to again, to reinforce this central axis, but also to bring the planting in and really frame in that axis. At the moment, you're in a sea of asphalt, basically. The pillars come down in a sea of asphalt. And so we've worked together with the architects to achieve the kind of original vision of the tower, where the legs actually come down in this picturesque garden. So you can see in the plan, we've tried to integrate all of the waiting queues into the planting, so that what's called the parvis can be completely clear. So no obstructions, no little kiosks, no bits and pieces of things going on. It's really just an open area that's about 50 or so meters wide. And here you can see a view, again, reinforcing that big central view back towards the military school and the Champ de Mars. And underneath it is you can see that sort of dark granite square. Originally, we wanted to have a water scrim, a water feature, but that was sort of thrown out at the beginning of the project for cost and technical reasons, whatever. But we're hoping that when that square gets wet with rain, because it's all open, that you will get the reflection. You'll be able to see the reflection of the underbelly of the tower in that area. And then you can see either side, we've just in front here, we've got the raised lawn panel, which provides seating for people. And then the increased lawn and planting in this area between the pillars. And there are quite a few buildings on the site. And again, we're working with the architects Chartier Cobasson, but the idea was always that the architecture would be embedded in the landscape. And that's true for for the queuing lines and the kiosks, that you very much feel like you're framed in the planting. This is an image of a below ground office for the set, who are the people that own and operate the Eiffel Tower. So that's on a lower level and with a sloped landscape that comes down. But from above, people will hardly be able to see that there's actually a building extension, because the roof is all planted. There's a baggage building so people can drop off their baggage, and that's also a fully planted roof. And then there are also areas of grotto that are being renovated and can be used for food and beverage. So this is just an image of one of those entrances. So we're redoing the entrance and exit pavilions, sort of streamlining the access for people buying tickets and going up into the tower. And here you can see another image of those below ground offices. So they sort of wrap around the base of the tower underground, and then they're planted on top. And an image of the new lateral gardens around the Eiffel Tower. And then just to the south of the tower is one of the lawn panels that we're going to restore. We've created this bowl, which is the sides are slightly raised, so it creates a little bit of an amphitheater. You get great views down to the Champ de Mars, and those can be used for temporary events and activities. And then you have these sort of other event spaces that can be used for sculpture or for outdoor art events or for play that are tucked in and framed by planting. And then one of the things that we've tried to do throughout the project really is to reduce the amount of hard and impermeable spaces and increase the amount of planting. And in this diagram, you can see that the original alleys were 19.5 meters wide. We did a pedestrian modeling analysis with movement strategies and determined that 10 meters was fine for the amount of pedestrians moving through. So we were able to then plant these edges, increase the amount of green planted area, and also help these trees by decompacting the roots and bringing water and air to those roots, so the trees will grow better and last longer. And this is an image of that the raised lawn edge. You can see here it's a limestone edge with a lawn that's it's got a very high sand content in it, so that it will be free draining and very stand up to hard wearing, stand up to the huge numbers of people that use the Champ de Mars every year. And just an image of that 2030 vision of a plaza at that southern end of the Champ de Mars in front of the military school. And then in terms of creating the identity of the site, that has gone right the way through, from the signage to the lighting, to the creation of benches, so that there's a kind of a unified family of elements right the way across the site. So, our signage colleagues have done a study of the existing signage, and a lot of the historical signs will be kept, but within the site we have developed a new family of both direction signage and information panels for this culture route that weaves its way through the site. So these are some of the images of that of the signage pole. It's sort of got vague references to the steelwork of the Eiffel Tower with these slight fillets to it, and these are direction posts, which will give you information about where to go on the site. And there will also be information panels and all the regulation panels to give you that sort of information. And then the family of kiosks that I described before. So today there's the whole variety of different kiosks, and the aim is really to have one family of kiosks that then a number of different concessionaires could own and operate and fit out. So here you can see the sort of historic furniture benches that you see typically in Paris, and we are going to reuse those, repaint them, refinish them, and they will be painted with a color that has been selected specifically for this project. So most horizontal surfaces have this kind of green color, and the vertical surfaces have the brown color that was developed for the project. And then we've obviously been working on the graphics with our graphic designers and creating this sort of unified color range that goes through all the furniture, including the kiosks. And
hello, I am now recording.
Oh,
excellent. Okay. And then
hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. I'm not sure what that was in the background, Mary.
Yeah, I don't either. I was obviously recorded over one slide.
Okay, yeah, no problem.
I will continue. What I was wanting to say with that slide really was that with any of these projects, you have to have the political will behind you. And obviously Paris gave its name to the Paris Climate Accord. And Anne Hidalgo, who's the mayor of Paris, obviously has a very green agenda. And you really need that kind of political support behind you to realize these projects. And one of the aims has been to increase the amount of green space, which we've managed to do by about 35%. You can see on the left-hand side, there's an image there of the existing proportion of sort of hard to soft surfaces, and then the increase in those surfaces by 35%. So by greening the whole of Trocadero, adding the planting in around Varsovie, creating the green squares and the planted bridge, the whole planting of the Quai Branly, and the enhancements of the gardens and the Champ de Mars have all meant that we've been able to increase those surfaces by quite a bit. There is a Paris Climate Action Plan that we have been working towards and are mindful of during the design, and the city has been, obviously is pushing the sustainability agenda. We are also going for several sustainability labels, biodiversity being one of them, which includes a sort of site-wide assessment of the project, and but also it has certain requirements for people, contractors and ourselves and anybody that's involved in the project to have sustainable practices. And so that's been, the sort of layers of complexity that get added on to the project. And we've also going for this label, particularly for the building for Parks and Gardens, which is French sustainable building label. And in doing that label, that again, it involved a kind of site-wide analysis of how we're improving the biodiversity across the whole of the site, connecting into existing tree corridors and green corridors, how we're reducing the heat island effect, again, across the whole of the site, and then looking more specifically at those issues locally for the site, the Émile Antoine site, where that little building is sitting. And that has, pushed us really to look at increasing as much as possible the amount of permeable surfaces, so permeable paving for the car park area, looking at stormwater attenuation, greening the roofs, and so on. And then the building itself is a timber building, which will be heavily insulated and has a green roof and much more performant from an energy point of view than the restoration of the old building could have been. And then the idea is to reuse a lot of the existing radiators and sinks and things that can be salvaged out of the old building to use them in this new building. And then, all of those sort of elements go together, and then you get, scored on your points, and we managed to achieve the points that we were looking for. The only other thing I wanted to point out about Paris, which I found quite interesting and which doesn't occur here as far as I know, is that they have a central depot where they recycle a lot of their material, including all the cobbles from the roads, tree grills, other street furniture, tree rings, and stone. They have a depot for stone, so they can block buy stone and for their projects, for all the curbs and benches and things like that. So they have a stock. And this kind of recycling of elements has been quite interesting to work in that way, because it's not something that I'm particularly familiar with, as I said, in this country. So wherever we're taking up roads, we're not directly recycling that material, but that material goes back to the depot, and we purchase material at a economically viable cost, and then we reuse that material. So there's this kind of loop. The city of Paris also has its own nursery that grows trees and plants for its many parks and gardens projects. They don't have the capacity to produce all the planting for this project because it's huge. But we are, for the first stage of the project, which is the Émile Antoine building, buying most of the plants and trees from the city nursery with a direct contract. So that's really what I wanted to say. And obviously, the Eiffel Tower features in just about any image of Paris that you can see. And this was our sort of ending slide about continuity, unity, and diversity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. That was quite a marathon. So, thank you very much. I love talking to you initially about all of the content, and to see it again is incredible. So I'm sure people have been blown away in the same way I was, and particularly by the idea of the depot. I think it feels like that in the nursery is what we used to do well maybe 30 years ago here, and it's kind of been lost. Would you stop sharing your screen, and then I can get mine back up in a second?
Yeah.
But thank you. Do you need a glass of water?
Yeah, I'll get a drink. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Have I stopped sharing?
Sorry?
Have I stopped sharing?
Yes, you have. Yeah, I've got ours back up, and that's great. No, thank you very much for that. So yeah, I'm sure everybody is keen to ask a few questions, perhaps. I'll put this slide up in the background, and then I'll have a look at the questions that have come up already, which you may not have had a proper chance to really look at. So I've got a couple here, and I think maybe you actually answered this second one. It was from Sarah Bridger. She said, what sustainable drainage features are included in the design? I don't know if there's any more you can say on that. I know you did actually cover some of the permeability.
The city of Paris has a non-potable water network that is water that's taken partially from the Seine. And and they also had a requirement that we should try and drain as much as possible into the soft planting. So that's what we've tried to do. We've done all the kind of leveling and drainage so that we're pushing as much as possible into the soft planting and not into the stormwater system.
Yeah,
and that's true. That's sort of true right the way across the site. We've also tried to obviously increase the amount of non-permeable surfaces wherever we can.
Well, Sarah, if you have any more questions on that, do add them in the Q&A. And another one from Stephen. In the UK, one of the major issues is our unwillingness to fund and put money into the management and maintenance of public open spaces and parks. How is this dealt with in this project? Who runs the park? Is it the city or central government? Where do they get their money from? And is it enough and guaranteed? I don't know if you can read that yourself. If it's
that's a very good question. I mean, it is the city of Paris, but the set, who are the people that own and operate the tower, it used to be a private entity, is now a public entity owned by the city of Paris. So they used to get a lot of their funding from the ticket sales of the Eiffel Tower, which, as you can imagine, is, a lot of people go, 30 million people a year are paying, well, whatever they're paying, 20 euros each. There was a steady kind of funding stream. Obviously, that's been compromised by COVID. And so their kind of intake hasn't been as much as they would have expected, and yet it is being funded by the city, and the maintenance is something that we have been talking through. It will be the the Parks and Gardens people who will look after the green spaces, and the highways people will look after the highways spaces. And yes, of course, they're all saying we need more money. If you're going to have this richly planted landscape, it needs to be looked after, and they need more money to look after it, and need to be funded to do that.
Do you think there's a skills shortage in horticulture, as there seems to be here? Is that another issue you've come up against?
I think so, and it's something that we've talked about. I mean, unlike here, where you find the maintenance teams for the big parks are often outsourced to private companies. I mean, there is a department that, with their own people and a history and a kind of knowledge. But I think that if you want to increase the amount of native planting in your landscapes, then there is a lack of horticultural knowledge and experience and expertise that you need the training, and then you need people to be able to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had interesting conversations with the city of Paris. They set these kind of criteria that you should be 50% native. But it took us months to figure out, okay, what do you mean by that? Do you mean that 50% of the plants have to be native species? Do you accept, and what is native? Is native from the Paris region? Is native France? Is Germany more native to Paris than southern France, which is Mediterranean? And does every seed, if we plant a meadow, does every seed count as a native plant? Which apparently it does. So, and it's not like there's an answer. I think the city of Paris and probably many other governments are trying to figure out, okay, we have a green agenda, we want to do this, we want to have more native plants, but how do you write the guidelines, and what do the guidelines actually mean when they're all really just being developed in terms of policy?
Yeah, and when you get much more specific. And Jackie has asked, is there rainwater harvesting for watering these plants?
There like I said, there is a public non-potable water network. So, and Paris has a thing called Paris Pluie. You have to be able to hold a reserve of 8 to 10 millimeters of water across every surface. And then it will percolate down, and then it'll go back into the non-potable, whatever has gone into the ground will be collected and go back into the non-potable water system. So we looked early on at having big stocks of reserves of water underneath the lawns and having big tanks, but it wasn't deemed to be necessary because of this the system they already have in place. We didn't have to stock it just there on the site.
That sounds quite unique. It's an interesting feature. Okay, a couple more questions from Anya, who asks if there are any particular considerations towards cycle parking.
Oh yes, sorry, I could have gone on forever about cycles. We are creating a new cycle route, a high-speed cycle route, and dedicated cycle lanes in Trocadero, and we hugely increased the amount of cycle parking provision everywhere, to the dismay of other people. Because the car people want wider lanes, and the cyclists want wider cycle paths, and so it's a real negotiation between the different lobby groups. But yeah, the city policy is to hugely increase the amount of cycling and cycle. Their bikes are called Vélib. They're hire bikes, and just cycle provision generally, huge amount.
Okay, that's good to know. And Xiao Gao has asked, said the design is nice. I wonder, apart from the current site constraints, is there any other site-specific design element? I like the choice of tree species material. Or anything else. For example, I can see your design happening in London. I think you've covered some of this in terms of obviously native planting, whatever that means, and locally resourced.
In terms of materiality, there is. The aim was basically to be quite sober, to be honest, to reuse as much of the material as we could on site. So they're all materials that are very Parisian, sable stabilisé, the stabilized sand that you see everywhere in a French park. The granite sets, those are used in a kind of peacock pattern. Those are used throughout Paris. Asphalt for the sidewalks, that's typical Paris. And so most of it is very of Paris, and the color palette, the limestone that we're using is, a French limestone, like the Palais de Chaillot and like the historic buildings around it. Very, it's subtle, but it's very French.
Yeah,
it's very Paris. Yeah.
I think at the level of the master plan, that's probably quite hard to fully appreciate, isn't it? It is in that real detail when you get down to plant palettes and specific materials that you'd see more of it. I don't know if anyone else has more questions to come. I wanted to ask you, this must be really once in a lifetime, this kind of project. And I think people use the word visionary a lot, but this really does seem to be in every way, and all of the stakeholders' desires for the changes this project will bring. And I wondered what your favourite part of it so far has been to work on.
Favorite part to work on? I guess I'm obviously the tower itself, and what goes on around the tower has just been fascinating, because as everybody probably knows, it was built as a temporary structure. So it was never meant to last more than a couple of years, and then did. And then over the 100 or so years, it's kind of been, it's like bricolage, you know. You go in there and there's it's a rabbit warren of stuff, and you just can't believe that this iconic monument is such a rabbit warren under, you know, in its guts. And that has just been, you know, it's just a kind of fascinating history, really. And then I guess, you know, the other challenge is really just is this constant maneuver between the political ambition and you know, the technical feasibility, and actually making a project of this scale happen. Because you really need to operate on sort of many different levels.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody will misunderstand that when they see the scale of the master plan. It's so vast, isn't it? There's so much complexity in that. But it's been fascinating. I think if we don't have any more questions, I'll start to close up for today. But do put anything forward if you wanted to ask anything. And was there anything else you wanted to mention that you may have forgotten about or excluded from your presentation, Mary? Or do you think you've covered enough?
No, I think I've covered it all. I suppose that, you know, the challenge at the moment is that we are going through the planning process, and it's because it's a highly political project. Obviously, it's being, you know, it's this Anne Hidalgo's project. The arrondissement around the Eiffel Tower are, you know, they're not her political party. And it's so that's also interesting how, and the French consultation meeting is very different to an English one, which is generally polite. The French just, you know, they just tell you what they think, and it can, you know, it's very, you know, there's a lot of fire and passion in there. Kind of.
Blunt. Yeah, that's the other aspect of a different culture, isn't it? Yeah. We talk about it as if it's easy to sort of navigate, but of course it isn't always.
And that's, I suppose, the other interesting thing is just the cultural aspect. I mean, we have a you know, a bilingual team here. All of the rest of the consultants are in Paris. So that's been a, you know, an experience also, being the lead consultant for this huge team in a whole different language, culture, and, you know, everything else. So.
Well, also during COVID, I mean, has that has that made big differences to your schedule? I mean, it must have slowed things down, surely.
Oh, before COVID, we were going back and forth to Paris every week. Since COVID. Now, recently, it's picked up, but for a year and a half, we didn't travel. Obviously, you know, French lockdowns were different, and quarantine and all of that. It was not possible, and the French are still fully masked in offices and underground, and also half working from home, not back in the office. So yeah, and it shut down the tower. You know, it shut down the tower for the first time for that length of time ever.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a huge impact.
It's not been easy for anyone, has it, I think? Yeah. Well, I'd better draw to a close so we don't run over. I know everybody's time is very precious, including yours, but thank you again. We're nearly done, just a couple of things to round up. And I hope everybody who's still with us agrees that everything we've talked about today is really very much aligned with SDG 11.4, and that we can take ideas away and make positive changes ourselves, particularly the landscape architects and urban designers among us, and that also the purpose of these Fikas is to make these SDGs more tangible so that you can see a way to make this difference yourself. And that's the intent from us, that, you know, we stand by what we often say, we can all save the world a little. And I think we have some new joiners today. So to make sure you don't miss out in future, please do sign up for our newsletter. You can find this page on our About Us page on the website. And we talk about many of the subjects of the Fikas in our newsletter. So, for instance, design as a tool for change or anti-hostile design measures. So, you know, don't miss out. And another way is to follow us on social media, obviously. So Instagram's particularly of interest to most of our followers, I think, but do catch up with us there as well. And that really brings today to a close. Thank you to everyone joining us for giving up another hour in a very competitive webinar world. And don't forget, these Fikas count towards your CPD, and this one really would count towards the Landscape Institute's minimum of 5 hours a year on the climate emergency. I think it's completely relevant. You can see our upcoming Fikas here. Very, very exciting. Never mind November, we're taking some time out, but very exciting in December. Please do join us. We'll give you a bit of an update on the Plus, our new factory coming in Norway. We've got some great images, and it's nearing completion and nearing actually opening in terms of the interior and production. And obviously we're going to draw our competition, which all of you will have a place for. Some of you have joined many more times and will have more of a chance, but we'll be drawing that competition to take somebody over there next summer, hopefully, once it's open and fully running. And do let us know if you have any thoughts for upcoming Fikas. We've got some planned for the spring. We'll let you know about those in December. And you can catch up on all of the previous ones now via our website page. If you look for Fika on our Vestra website, you'll see all of them hosted there. And we have these formal CPDs as usual if you're keen to look at one of those. So thanks again. Thank you, Mary, particularly.
Oh, thank you.
I hope you have a more relaxed afternoon.
Yeah, okay.
We know we're going to, I think we were going to put up a link to your website page for the project, but as you pointed out, that's going to be updated this afternoon. So anybody that would like to see that, do take a look maybe later today or Monday, and you'll be able to hear about much more up-to-date information on the whole project. And thanks to my colleagues Jack and Matt, who are in the background helping with all of the background functions. So have a great weekend as usual.
Okay.
And we'll see you soon. Thanks. Bye,
Thank
Mary.
you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.